So I'm Space K Sarah. I go by Space K Sarah because I am a space fanatic. And I am so thrilled to have both of you here with me, Erin and Lydia, who both work on the Perseverance Rover. And so I would love for you both to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you do on Percy.
Absolutely. So, just like Sarah said, my name is Erin. So, I'm a PhD student at McGill University, which is up in Quebec in Canada. So, I'm a fifth year PhD student, so a little late in my degree, wrapping up soonish. I'm in a program called Earth and Planetary Science, and I've chosen to focus my research in the astrobiology field. So, I'm primarily studying regions on Earth that simulate other planets in some way so that we can understand the biology in those systems and use them as a blueprint to understand other planets. And because my passion is Mars, I studied places specifically that look like the Martian surface here on Earth so that we can better direct Perseverance towards the places on Mars that will give us the best chance of finding signs of ancient life, which is the mission's primary objective on Mars. So that's a little bit about me. On the rover, I joined the team on an instrument team called SuperCam. So if anybody has seen a picture of the rover, right at the top there's a big long mast, and then what you would imagine is kind of the Cyclops eye. That is the SuperCam instrument, and it is a bit of a Swiss army knife of science. It does a lot of different techniques. It shoots lasers at rocks and collects that light back in a spectrometer,
Because
and that
that's
can
not
give us
cool sounding at
information.
all. Shoots lasers.
It does. We shoot lasers at rocks on Mars. I do it from my bedroom. It blows my mind that this is something that you can do as a grad student. But what that laser does is it gets cooler. It is a teeny tiny little explosion on the surface of the rock. And as the light passes through that little tiny explosive burst, that gives us information about the chemistry. We can also measure the mineralogy. And also we take photographs, so we get really great information about the texture of the rocks, the color, how all the grains are fitting together. And all the scientists on the team then come together and analyze that whole suite of data to understand what makes up those rocks and how they formed. And that gives us a history of the planet to better understand it. So that's my main role on the team. But something that's really lovely about the Perseverance mission is they're very encouraging, especially to young scientists, to pick up other roles on the mission. So I also get to play targeting scientist. So sometimes I call in and I'm the expert on the line, and I get to pick out the specific rocks that we're going to analyze with all the instruments on the rover. So I get to come in and bring my scientific opinion and select the rocks that Perseverance is going to analyze. Sometimes I am the tactical documentarian, which means I'm the scientific note taker for the day. So I just get to sit as a fly on the wall, listen to all the other experts on the mission, discuss the science, and I just take mad notes so that it's codified for anybody in the future who wants to go back and read about the mission, go through our logs, go through the thinking process. Those notes are taken by people like myself and others on the mission. So primarily I'm with the SuperCam team, but NASA, the team, is really incredible in giving us opportunities. And so I've trained for a couple of other roles and get to wear a couple different hats.
Oh my God, that is so impossibly cool. I am in utter awe. We also have with us Lydia, who also does work with Perseverance. And welcome, Lydia. Would you like to tell us what you do?
Hi, yeah, I'm Lydia, and I'm a third year PhD student at the University of Florida. My research is also focused on astrobiology and studying environments on Earth that sort of resemble environments on Mars. Um, I'm in the geology program here, and specifically, my research focuses on finding molecules in Earth rocks that look like molecules that we might look for on Mars to represent life. So, all life that we know it on Earth is made up of organic molecules, which are molecules made up of carbon and hydrogen and oxygen, and some nitrogen and sulfur. So I use rover-based techniques to look for these molecules in Earth rocks so that when we look for them in Mars rocks with the rovers, we know what we're looking for. I work primarily on the SHERLOC team, which is a funny acronym that stands for the Scanning Habitable Luminescence Scanning habitable environments with luminescence.
NASA's so good at these acronyms, by the way. Like,
Take your backronyms.
yeah.
You come up with a cool word and give it a meaning.
They, like the Da Vinci Plus, when they announced that, it's like, don't ask me to remember all of that, like, yeah.
Yeah, I can usually get the full acronym, but maybe not on a Saturday morning. But it is an acronym, and it is an instrument that is looking for signs of life on Mars. And yes, it does have a little instrument that is part of the overall instrument that is also named Watson. So SHERLOC is looking for signs of my life with Perseverance. So that's something that's very exciting. I joined the mission not too long ago. I joined the mission about a year ago. So Percy's landing anniversary is really close to my joining the team anniversary. So that's really exciting as well.
Both of you and what you do is so freaking cool. That to me is like rock star status. I have kind of not super technical questions for you because I am really interested in just kind of knowing more about your thoughts and your opinions. So first of all, I do want to know, do either of you know, will she sing herself happy birthday on her anniversary like Curiosity does?
That is a good question. We'll have to wait and see. My inkling is no. I think that the Curiosity happy birthday song, it happened a couple times, and then there's kind of these internal discussions of like, it's actually kind of like labor intensive and takes a lot of power. So it's like, so it's like, well, maybe we want to focus on, doing science and looking for signs of life. But so I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But NASA always surprises us, or they hide little messages in the rovers.
Exactly.
So maybe there's a little Easter egg
right.
waiting for all of us. And
that was actually going to be my next question. So, what were your favorite Easter eggs on her? Lydia, I'll start with you. What was your favorite Easter egg of Percy? Because she had a lot.
Well, the one I remember the most is the parachute when it opened up. The red and white colors of the parachute as Percy was landing spelled out JPL, which is the NASA center where a lot of the rover was built. So I thought that was really cool. And there were a lot of people on the internet trying to decode what the parachute was for a couple days before they actually gave everyone the answer. So I had some friends who are engineers who were working hard on decoding that.
Oh, that's awesome. How about you, Erin?
Mine, harkening back to Lydia's explanation of SHERLOC and Watson, I get such a kick out of the fun of that instrument and its whole narrative arc of the SHERLOC saga. So we've got SHERLOC and Watson as the two primary instruments, and then one of their calibration targets, so one of the pieces of equipment on the rover that's used to make sure the instrument is operating as it should be, is a little teeny tiny, very fine lined maze. And they zoom in and take a photo of that and make sure it's resolved crisp and clear, and so people can go home and do the maze. And it has a little silhouette of Sherlock Holmes in the middle, and I just think it's so it's so rad to me that you have SHERLOC and Watson, and their calibration target is a little puzzle to complete, and it's just somebody put so much thought into the narrative arc of this instrument suite, and it's just such an extra, and I adore it. And every time they calibrate their instrument, it's such a thrill to have those instruments come down because it's just a little reminder of how fun it is. It's
I don't think I knew that one. That is amazing. Because there's so many. They put so many on her. Oh my God, I didn't know that one. That's incredible. That is so cool. Now I'm going to have to go look for pictures of that because it's so nerdy. I always tell people that don't you dare ever think that like engineers and scientists are dry and boring because they put so much creative energy into these different like secret messages and even just like witty, funny things like the stickers of the rover family on her, kind of like the car stickers of like, a stick family, but it's like a stick rover family. I have one on my car now. So obviously COVID has been a very impactful thing, particularly on Perseverance. And like you were saying earlier, Erin, you're, shooting lasers at Mars from your bedroom. So what is a day in the life of your job, like working on Mars? I'm going to start with you, Lydia. Like what would you say a day in the life of working on Perseverance is kind of like for you?
Awesome. Yeah. So, like Erin, I'm also a tactical documentarian, which means I will call onto the WebEx line and I will sit and take notes of the major scientific decisions made during the day. So we're not on Mars time anymore, which means we don't have to have meetings at 4 in the morning anymore because we have
That's
reduced our timeline to such that, we can get messages sent up to Percy at a reasonable time frame, and we kind of have more of a handle on this whole thing. Um, but we do change the start time somewhat based on when the satellites are able to send our messages up to Percy. And so sometimes our day will start at like 9 in the morning. Sometimes we still have days that start at around 5 p.m. and finish up around midnight, but we don't have anything really at 4 in the morning anymore. So for me, what that looks like is I call onto the WebEx line maybe around 11 a.m. and then I go to the uplink kickoff meeting, which describes, what we're planning on doing that day, what our major decisions that we're going to make are, where we are, what instruments we're planning on using. And then we spend the next 6 hours refining that plan, making sure we know what rocks exactly we want to point our lasers at. And it usually involves a lot of tea and a lot of Microsoft Word documents.
nice. How about you, Erin? What does a day in the life of working on Mars look like?
Yeah, I mean, my workday looks very similar to Lydia's, so maybe I will just complement her explanation with a little story about what actually doing it on Mars time was. So often for the first 90 sols, which is a Martian day, is a sol. Yep. So often for the first 90, it's really critical that we're in constant communication with the rover to make sure it's healthy, make sure none of those mechanics are stiff or getting cold on the surface. So it's important for us to be in constant contact. And so the scientists and engineers back on Earth, we shift our timelines to live on the Martian day. And the Martian day is about 40 minutes longer than an Earth day. So our workday shifts forward by 40 minutes kind of each day. So if I start working at 9 a.m. one day, the next day I'll start working at about 9:40. And then the next day it'll be 40 minutes further in the future. And that marches forward until you're starting your shifts at 1, 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And so it's very strange living on the timeline of another planet, especially when, the sunshine outside is not following the circadian rhythm I'm forcing myself to follow. So I invested in a really great eye mask, really good earplugs, and I had to schedule my sleep. My Google Calendar just had these big black blocks where I told myself, this is where you need to sleep if you want to be awake during your shift. And it was great because at the time I actually lived with an audio engineer. And so he would have to play music out loud all throughout the day, his working day, while I was trying to sleep so that I could wake up for my Martian shift. And so that's why I had to invest in very good earplugs. But yeah, the cadence of Mars time, what we were doing is the scientists, we would work the Martian night shift. And so what we would do is while the rover was sleeping on the surface of the planet, we would get all the data back from the previous day's work. We would analyze it. We would look at the scene. We would understand where the rover was, what its health status was. We would select the rocks. We'd come up with a laundry list of activities we want to do the next day. So we'd spend the whole Martian night deciding what the rover should do the next day. Then we would uplink those commands to the rover, send them over via the satellite network Lydia mentioned. And so when the rover woke up in the morning, it would have this list of activities to do, it would execute them, and then send us back a report at the end of its day. We would wake up for the next Martian evening, get that list of that report, and leapfrog like that on and on and on. So we were working the Martian night shift, and it was 3 months of living on the timeline of another planet. And so I'm actually a little grateful that this actually happened in the pandemic because it made it very easy to just stay at home and live on the timeline of another planet, close my curtains. I wasn't missing out on anything. So I didn't have any FOMO. It was a little bit of a blessing in disguise. My city was actually under curfew at the time. Oh, wow. So I couldn't go outside anyway. So it was the perfect time to send my mind to another planet and live the Martian night shift.
What would you say has been your favorite moment in Perseverance 1 year history and your least favorite moment so far? And I'll start with, Erin, if you want to go first, you can go first this time.
Oh boy. Probably very similar moments for favorite and least favorite. I will start with my least favorite because it came first chronologically. And so one of the incredible things about the Perseverance Rover mission is it is the first step of a much larger program called Mars Sample Return.
Mm-hmm.
So Perseverance is driving around, and when we encounter a rock that is particularly compelling and exciting, we will drill into it, extract a small core sample, and store it inside of the rover. And in about, I guess a year from now, we're going to drop off a pile of rocks on the surface, and a future spacecraft will then travel to Mars, pick up that pile of rocks, and deliver it back to Earth so that scientists back here with all the power of our terrestrial laboratories can analyze these Martian samples. So a very important, very exciting, very novel part of this mission. And it's huge. It's critical to the science that we want to do. It's kind of like an Apollo 11 era, but for planetary science. These are going to be the first samples of Mars that we have back on Earth where we know where they came from. But our first sample, when we drilled into Mars the first time, we were ecstatic. We were very excited. We retracted our drill, looked inside, and it was empty.
Oh,
and so the sample we had tried to collect, it was gone. And it was a couple days of, it wasn't chaos because it's very organized chaos, but there was a lot of questions. Where did this rock go? We thought we'd picked it up, and so we backed the rover up a little bit. We took photographs of the whole area to see if we had dropped it, and we couldn't see any evidence that the rock had fallen or been dropped. So we eventually just had to conclude that it was very likely that the percussive motion of the drill had just ground the rock into dust and it had blown away. So our very first sample, our first attempt to bring a piece of Mars back to Earth, had just dissolved and blown away in the light Martian breeze. So it was a bit incredible, but it was kind of disappointing. But NASA, true to their spirit, it turned into an opportunistic sample. So we had this empty tube, but we sealed it shut anyway, and it's gonna come back to Earth as a sample of the Martian atmosphere.
Oh,
so we didn't get a rock in there, but now we have a wonderful sample of Martian air that we can measure and better understand the climate and how the atmosphere is developed. So in contrast, my then favorite moment of the mission was when we next tried to core and we were successful. We learned from that first attempt. We picked a rock that looked harder, more cohesive, more structurally sound. For the second attempt, we wanted to be really sure it wasn't going to crumble and blow away. And sure enough, we drilled in. It was a beautiful, smooth core. It pulled out, it filled the tube, it sealed perfectly. We stored it in the rover. No fault, it was just incredible feat of engineering of this rover drilling into a rock and caching this sample on another planet 340 million kilometers away. Yeah. And it was just such an incredible moment in planetary science. And I can just imagine the number of PhD theses that will be written on this core sample when it finally comes back. And knowing that I was a small part of getting it back here is just such a thrill.
Yeah, to save on time, instead of asking you your least favorite and your most favorite, I'm going to ask this question to Lydia just instead. If you get the chance, and I think probably a lot of you will, get a chance to see these samples for real, finally, how do you think that's going to feel? How is that going to make you feel? Like seeing something actually in person, as opposed to all these pictures you get back, all the data you get back, right? It is real, but it's kind of hard to connect with still images and stuff like that versus seeing something three-dimensionally in front of you. How do you think that's going to make you feel?
Yeah, I think that's going to make me feel amazing. So I actually have a little piece of Mars already. So I have a little piece of a Martian meteorite. Not from Perseverance, but this was an undergraduate graduation gift from a family member. But so there are I have one of those. It looks just like that.
Right. I have mine too right here.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, so sometimes when meteorites hit other planets, so lots of craters on Mars, and some of those impacts spew up bits of rock into the atmosphere of Mars. Mars's atmosphere is really thin, so that some of these pieces of rock are able to escape into space. And so there are some meteorites floating around out there that were originally from the surface of Mars and were blown up there by another impact. sometimes these will hit Earth. Sometimes we get pieces of the moon this way from impacts that hit the moon, and then bits of the moon end up on Earth. And so these are one of the rarer types of meteorites. Are called lunar meteorites, and Martian meteorites. And so you can actually buy these online for not that much money. So you can buy like a really small one, I think, for like about $40, maybe $50. And so I have a little piece of Mars on my windowsill. But I think getting that's not really something I really use for science, because it's been for my science. Other people do study Martian meteorites. But for me, that one has been so altered by heat from multiple impacts, from being impacted, sent up into space, and then falling onto Earth again, that I don't think it really has organic molecules, which is what I'm looking for. So I think to have a pristine piece of Mars that I'd be able to run experiments on, oh man, that would be amazing.
Do you think you're gonna cry? I feel like I would cry. Yeah, seriously, like I think I would cry.
I cried when Perseverance landed. So
me too.
Me too. I think
I cried when we first heard the microphone recording of the wind.
Yeah.
So if I ever am in the same room as a Martian sample, I'm just gonna be a scientific mess of emotion.
Yeah.
The wind audio was amazing, because for me that was something that made the rover actually feel so real. Like, it's one thing like seeing pictures, but for me, just like hearing like the wind like move over the surface of Mars and be able to like hear that and close my eyes and imagine myself there, that just made it so much more real.
Yeah.
I'm a very audio oriented person. So
yeah, definitely. It grabbed another sense that we haven't had a chance to utilize before in exploring Mars, if you will. So it's, I really, same. Like when she landed, I was just a mess. It was such an exciting time. All right, I have one more question. This got way more scientific than I actually anticipated it to be. You guys are phenomenal. Like, you both have solid SciComm careers for sure, on top of your already spectacular careers. Okay, this is extremely hypothetical. I'm going to go on the record and say that this isn't real. I'm just making up a scenario just for fun. So say a sample comes back and it's got a virus and we have a zombie outbreak. Don't worry, the humans survive. But then a movie's made. Who plays you in the movie?
Me.
You play yourself? You're not going to have another actor play you or actress
during non-pandemic times, so I can't imagine any like production about me that I wouldn't play myself.
She's like, oh my God, how dare you imply that I would have someone fill in for me? I would do it.
It has to be a musical. It has to be a musical, though.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Okay. So you're going to be like SciCommers, astrobiologists and actresses who also sing. I love this.
Yeah.
Like that
can be exclusive to Lydia. I have no musical bones in my body. I will not participate well in this.
Oh, maybe we'll have
relief.
Well, maybe we'll make it a series instead, and we'll have that one token musical episode, right? And that'll be your moment to shine. Who would play you, Erin, if there was a movie?
My gosh, the first that comes to mind is Jennifer Lawrence, because she was just such a great astrophysics student in Don't Look Up. I think she captured some of the drudgery of grad school is great, but there's moments of darkness and difficulty, and I think she captured some of that vibe really well at times.
Same.
So,
I feel you. Same.
Yeah, and she was very good at just looking, a little wide-eyed at some of the reactions she gets. So I think she's a great popular scientist.
I love this. Like I said, we're all apparently huge Mars and Perseverance nerds here. So this is like so awesome. I think what we should do too to promote this is like, you send me a picture of our pieces of Mars and we'll be like, are you really a Mars nerd if you don't own a piece of Mars?
Yeah, this is a niche concentration of people that everyone on the call has. I've got a Martian meteorite too.
Right. roommate who is also on the mission also has a Martian meteorite in her
Oh my
office.
God. So this is the rite of passage. If you're really a Mars fan, you have to have a piece. I also have my I have my MOVA globe of Mars too. So
I've got a globe too.
Oh my God!
I don't have a globe. I'm sorry.
Oh, Lydia.
That's so good.
All right, Lydia, you're gonna need a globe.
I guess I'm gonna have to get one. That looks so
You
cool.
will.
It's so
They're
fun. And
so
it
cool.
spins.
Wow. Yeah, I want one now. I'm gonna go buy one for myself this afternoon.
Yeah, or we'll throw out a plug to MOVA and be like, send her a globe. Awesome. Okay, thank you guys so much for talking with me. And if you guys want to follow, do you want to shout out like your Twitter handles? If people want to follow your what you're doing, go for it.
Sure. Yeah, if people want to follow along with pretty regular, semi-serious kind of comedic updates about the Perseverance mission, I'm at Erin Space Case. So that's
Right.
ERIN Space Case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I post pretty infrequently, but I am Lydia at Lydia Kivrak.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. This is so cool. I honestly feel like we could do more. Like we could do more.
Yeah.
I see potential here.
More than happy to.
Yeah.
So,